once again. Highs reach 88 today. We should dip to 56 tonight. High of 86 tomorrow. Get up to the minute weather updates from the Weatherology Weather Center. I'm staff meteorologist Paul Trombley on this NWKS radio station. Currently, it's 62 degrees.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do...
Let's play something, Grandma.
...became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
When you buy a new house, you might say,
"Shut the front door."
Winning!
No, seriously, shut the front door. We own this house now.
But you actually need to say,
"Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there."
That's right. The local State Farm agent is there to help you choose the coverage you need.
Welcome to my crib. No one says that anymore, but I don't care.
So just remember, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
State Farm, Bloomington, Illinois.
Get ready for the most electrifying football action of the season right here on Rocket 1025. Cheer on your Denver Broncos with every thrilling play, every game-winning drive, and every heart-pounding moment. Don't miss a second of action. Tune in all season long to Rocket 1025. Broncos football powered by FMB Bank, Pearl Chevrolet GMC, Colby Ag Center, Tubbs & Sons Ford Sales, Hoxie Feed Yard Imperial Beef, Next Tech Wireless, Burlington Ford, Zimmelman's Jewelry, and Vince's GM.
A moment of inconvenience isn't worth a lifetime of regret. Secure the children in your care in the right car seat, each and every drive. It can make all the difference for their life and yours. A message from the Kansas Department of Transportation.
They're having one hail of a sale at Hurl Chevrolet GMC in Goodland, Kansas. That's right, a hail sale where you can get massive savings on a new vehicle. For example, get a 23 GMC Sierra 1500 up to $20,000 off when you trade in eligible vehicle, now just over $37,000. A new 24 Chevy Tahoe RST, $13,000 off, now just over $59K. Plus 24 Chevy Traverse RS, $10,000 off, now just over $45,000. Plus many more. It's one hail of a sale at Hurl Chevrolet GMC in Goodland, Kansas. Online at hurlchev.com.
Grow your business with Miller Construction Services, LLC in Goodland. They specialize in commercial construction and are your local independent authorized builder for Chief Buildings. Get your planning and project underway now. Call Matt at 785-899-5231. Whatever your commercial needs are, contact Miller Construction Services, licensed and bonded general contractors. Visit millercs.com. millercs.com.
Even though your attention has turned back to school with events and activities, you just can't forget everything going on at home. That's where your local Hoover Lumber Ace hardware stores in Goodland and Colby come in. Keep the lawn in check with mowers, blowers, and trimmers from Craftsman, Toro, and Ego. They are still your local Benjamin Moore paint retailer, and they still have that amazing selection of outdoor grills and griddles from Traeger, Weber, and Blackstone. Plus, their helpful and knowledgeable staffs are some of the best in the Northwest. It's all at Hoover Lumber Ace Hardware in Goodland and Colby. Open every day but Sunday.
If you're shopping for a banking institution, visit with Equity Bank of Hoxie, Grinnell, and Quinter, Kansas. The Equity Bank is heavily invested in local business and activities contributing in many ways back to their community. Their employees are involved with many organizations and area events. Plus, a lot of experience comes with that staff. You'll find valuable local assistance when you bank at the Equity Bank of Hoxie, Grinnell, Quinter, and other locations in Western Kansas. The Equity Bank, member FDIC.
Where is the best place to go to stream your favorite NWKS radio station? NWKSradio.net. Where should you go to find out what's happening in the area? NWKSradio.net. What's happening with local area sports? NWKSradio.net. Is the weather causing delays or cancellations? NWKSradio.net. Need tickets to the next big NWKS radio event? NWKSradio.net. The place to go to be in the know. NWKSradio.net.
When it comes to the great outdoors, the Ford Bronco has what it takes. Be ready and make the trails yours with the Ford Bronco, now at Dan Brenner Ford. Feel the power as you enjoy driving the Bronco. All the confidence and safety you need. The Ford Bronco, on-road or off-road, now at Dan Brenner Ford, north of the Highway 27 overpass in Goodland.
Dan Brenner Ford, the
Sidecar right truck right now.
You ready? Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4!
It's the Morning Blitz with Ross Volkmer.
If you want to win in football, it all starts up front. Mass kicks ass.
The region's only local sports talk.
Listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about.
Broadcasting on Goodland's Rocket 102.5. Simulcasting on Goodland's 730 Gold KLOE.
Guys everywhere.
Discussing it all from the preps.
Showtime for the Lady Eagles.
Blitz is presented by Pearl Chevrolet GMC, Hoover Lumber Ace Hardware, and F&B Bank, as well as the Insurance Agency, Farmer State Bank in Oakley, the Cowboy Corner Express, and Equity Bank of Hoxie, Quinter, and Grinnell.
Let's go to work. A bobble and stolen base number 30. And with that, Bobby Witt Jr. becomes the first shortstop in Major League history to have 2 30-30 seasons.
That one's driven out to left center field and deep. Going back, J-Rod, turning, looking, see ya! He checked the box. He's now homered in every ballpark in baseball. A 2-run blast, and the Yankees lead 6-1.
Ohtani lifts a fly ball to deep right field. How far will it go? Into the second deck. It's his 48th home run in his hunt for 50-50.
Pitch coming to Tobar, and that's hit well to right field. Moving back is Corbin Carroll, looking up, and gone! Just clearing that high fence into the Rockies bullpen for a home run for Tobar. Had one last night, it's got one tonight, 3-0 Rockies.
Happy Wednesday morning, everybody. Glad you could join us again on the Morning Blitz, broadcasting on Goodland's Rocket 102.5. And, of course, 730 Gold KLOE, an overcast and cool start to this Wednesday, September the 18th. Right now, 60 degrees outside the KKCI studios here in South Goodland as we get this show underway, where today we'll be joined by our good friend from WIBW Sports. Dan Lucero is going to stop by for a sports smorgasbord with all kinds of things to talk about, whether that be Major League Baseball playoffs, KU and K-State football, the Chiefs. We'll get to all Broncos. We'll talk it all with Dan Lucero, more than likely, coming up here at the bottom of the hour. Tennessee is changing the NIL game. Is it good? Is it bad? Thoughts on that coming up a little bit later on in the program as well. Once again, we're expected to have a high today of 87, so a few degrees cooler. Hopefully just the wind doesn't blow as bad. I don't know if that's going to be a guarantee or not, but boy, I'm done with the wind. I've had enough wind for a few days, so I'll call that good at this point in time. But yes, full show ahead today. As always, if you'd like to hit us up on the text line, it is always open. The FB Bank text line is 785-899-2222. Hit us up and we'll get your thoughts and comments and everything here on the Morning Blitz as we continue here on this Wednesday. So there we go. Let's, of course, it is a Wednesday. That means we have the college football Power 5 coming up here in just a matter of moments. But before we do that, I want to quickly highlight a couple of volleyball teams yesterday from around the region. I saw some results from yesterday. Oakley Volleyball continued their fantastic start to the season. They won both of their matches last night in Hill City, getting sweeping wins over the Ringnecks as well as Smith Center. So a little Mid-Continent League volleyball triangular with Oakley taking both of those matches. Hoxie lost both of their matches in Hayes, falling to TMP as well as Russell. They lost both those matches in straight sets, and Hoxie kind of in a bit of a rough stretch here in their volleyball season. Quinter would go 1-1 at their own home triangular. They took care of Otis Bison. It took 3 sets, but they got it done. And then they lost to Ness City in straight sets, did the Quinter Bulldogs. And I saw a few other scores kind of leak in late. Golden Plains was swept by, let's see, who was that? But Golden Plains was swept by here today. All of a sudden I'm losing my train of thought here. But Golden Plains was swept by Victoria yesterday. I saw Logan Palco swept Shylin. That was a sweeping loss for Shylin. So, yeah, it was. There's a few other scores that came across from around the listening region
here last night for high school volleyball. And today, no local sports. Colby Community College volleyball, usually the one thing that keeps the local sports calendar ticking on a Wednesday during the fall. They have a bye here and won't play again until Saturday. Will the 6th-ranked Trojans from CCC. So we've got about 20 minutes or so, maybe a little bit more, to dive in and talk a little bit about the college football with week number 3. Is that right? Am I already on that? Maybe it's week 4. I might be wrong. It might be week 5, honestly. It's week 4. So week 4 of the college football season gets going tomorrow night with South Alabama and App State, but those games are not a part of the Power 5. So let's get to it here on a Wednesday, the college football Power 5. Overall, I would say it's a better week than last week. That's what I'll say. Overall, when you look at the entirety of the slate of college football this weekend, if you're going to be around home or wanting to watch some, probably it's a better slate than it was last week. Last week maybe had a game or two that were intriguing, and a lot of them were kind of blowouts, in my opinion. And there were, of course, a couple games that surprised me last week. You know, I didn't think Georgia and Kentucky was going to be that entertaining, but it was. This week, it's a little bit better overall of a slate, I would say, here in week number 4. So with that, let's dive right in.
The Power 5, number 5.
Starting out with my first game. Actually, before we get to number 5, I have an honorable mention game. I want to get to the honorable mention. That would be a Northeastern battle between Michigan State on the road in Boston, taking on Boston College. Ever since Boston College took care of Florida State as easily as they did, and now, once again, Florida State is one of the few teams out there in America that is yet to pick up a win. They're 0-3 after a loss to Memphis last week. But Boston College looked very good in that game, and they looked good in their bye game against Duquesne, and they're coming off a very hard-fought, close loss on the road at a top 10 Missouri team. They lost 27-21, but they were in that thing throughout, ended up losing by 6. And now they're taking on a Michigan State team who is 3-0 with wins over Florida Atlantic, and I think it's Prairie View is who the other game was. They dominated 40-0 last week. And then the middle game between there was a conference game against Maryland, which they squeaked by in kind of a toss-up game, I would say. They get a 3-point win there, 27-24. I like this matchup because of the court. First of all, because of the teams you have. I think an upstart Michigan State team that a lot of people forgot that their head coach is pretty darn good. Pretty darn good head coach there for Michigan State. The guy from Oregon State, Jonathan, I can't think of his last name for whatever reason. I'm drawing a blank on it. But very, very good football coach there at both these places. And Bill O'Brien has proven to be a good football coach at the collegiate level with his couple of stops, at least early on. So this is a great coaching matchup. So I love that. And the quarterback matchup. Talked about Castellanos a couple weeks ago for Boston College. He's a very good player. I think he's 5th in the nation in total touchdowns. He really can, whether it's running and passing combined, he's very, very good. He has 9 touchdowns to just 2 picks so far this year. And then Childs, as I think everyone has called him, but I think it's actually Chillis, the quarterback for Michigan State. Up and down year, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks, but he's a highly athletic guy that came with their head coach from Oregon State to be here at Michigan State. I think they're going to have it'll be a very good quarterback matchup, in my opinion. I really do. I think it'll be entertaining. I think this game will be entertaining. It's a late kickoff at 7 Central, 6 Mountain Time. Currently, right now, Boston College, a 6.5-point favorite, playing at home. I think they will cover that. I think it'll be about a touchdown win for Boston College. I don't think Michigan State's been challenged as much as Boston College has, and Boston College has certainly stood up to those 2 challenges in Missouri and Florida State. So, honorable mention game, Michigan State and Boston College here on the college football Power 5 on this Wednesday.
Number 4.
Whoops. I got to get to number 5. Now we're at number 5. Rutgers on the road at Virginia Tech is my number 5 game. Both teams with a couple of wins. Rutgers a 2-0 start against very lackluster teams in Howard and Akron. Virginia Tech has that overtime loss in the season opener back on the 31st of August to Vanderbilt, but since then have convincing wins over Marshall and Old Dominion. This is a game where you're like, okay, who's for real? Because I think a lot of people think that Virginia Tech could be one of the top teams in the ACC. Rutgers is kind of one of the teams I think could finish top half of the Big Ten. They have a very, very good running back in McGonaghy, I think is how you say his name. Monogany. I don't know how to say his last name, but he's pretty darn good. One of the better ones in the country with 373 yards and 4 touchdowns so far this season. I think this is a game where you find out a lot about which team is going to have maybe a little bit better season, which team is going to pose more of a threat as this year goes on. Will Virginia Tech go out there, who's considered one of the better teams in the ACC, and take care of Rutgers by, a couple of scores? Or is Rutgers going to go on the road to a tough place to play there in Lane Stadium in Blacksburg, Virginia, and pick up a very nice resume-building road win for Rutgers, who has one of the easier schedules in all of college football? Because after this, they host Washington, they go to Nebraska, they host Wisconsin, they host UCLA. There's some winnable games in that mix right there. Even on the road at Nebraska could be a winnable game for Rutgers. So I think this game shows a lot of, what do we expect to see? And what do we expect to see going forward the rest of this season? And we will find out when Rutgers and Virginia Tech take the field. That's also on the ACC network. That's an earlier kickoff of 2:30 Central, 1:30 Mountain Time. Right now, Virginia Tech, 3.5-point favorite at this point in time. I don't know. To me, it's a total toss-up game. I don't really know where to go on this one. I just don't know. I think I'll take Virginia Tech with a 3.5 to cover just because they're at home. I think that's what I'll think. That's what I say on that. There you go. We're moving along here on the College Football Power 5.
Number 4.
I'm going to stick a little bit closer to home here. I think this is going to be an interesting game. We got the 24th ranked Fighting Illini at the 22nd ranked Nebraska Cornhuskers. I think it's the first ranked game in ranked game in Memorial Stadium since 2013. It's been 10 plus years since Nebraska had a ranked opponent come into Memorial Stadium and have that ranked game where Nebraska was ranked and the opponent was ranked. Well, that changes here this Friday night, by the way. This is a Friday night game. Another one of these great Friday night games that we get. Last week we had Arizona and Kansas State, a ranked game. And now we get Nebraska, Illinois in a ranked game. Unfortunately, these Friday night games are not going anywhere, but I do not like them personally. So right now you've got Nebraska as a 7.5-point favorite against the Illini. Nebraska got a good test last week against Northern Iowa because Northern Iowa lined up and tried to run it down Nebraska's throat like neither UTEP nor Colorado had tried to do in their first 2 games. It was a change in philosophy. And Nebraska's defense had some struggles getting off the field. It was a good wake-up call to get prepared for this Illinois team who's going to want to run the football right down your throat. Illinois has a big running back. I think he's like 6'4", 260 pounds. He's huge. Fagan is his name. Has 3 touchdowns over 170 yards, rushing this season. Luke Altmaier has 6 passing touchdowns, although a lot of those came against subpar competition. And this Illinois defense is very opportunistic. I think they have 8 takeaways and, of course, a pick 6. One of those was against Kansas's Jalen Daniels. This Illinois team is solid. But here's the thing. Nebraska's at home. It's the 400th consecutive sellout of Memorial Stadium. I have a hard time seeing Nebraska lose this football game. Right now, Nebraska, a 7.5-point favorite. I think Illinois will probably cover, but I think Nebraska maybe wins by 6 or something along those lines at this point in time. Illinois, Nebraska in my College Football Power 5. That is number 4 here for week number 4.
Number 3.
We get into the really, really good games here. Another ranked game at number 3. Oklahoma hosting number 6 Tennessee. It's the Josh Heupel game because Josh Heupel played at Oklahoma. He coached there for a while, had a little bit of a sour end to his coaching career there. He left. He's the head coach at UCF, then gets hired at Tennessee, where they've got Tennessee on a very high trajectory right now. The 6th-ranked team, they've covered all the spreads, which have been ginormous spreads through their first 3 games. Now, once again, they've played Chattanooga, NC State, and Kent State. So not like it's been a super challenging schedule for Tennessee. Well, Oklahoma has had to face a little bit tougher slate. They've got Houston, who's on the rebuild, and that was not a good game for Oklahoma, only winning by 4. And then Tulane, as many K-State fans know, is a solid opponent. They beat them last week 34-19 in what was a close game pretty much throughout. It helps that Oklahoma is at home in Norman. That helps a lot. But I don't think Oklahoma's offense has been that great underneath Jackson Arnold. He hasn't gotten a lot of help. When Jackson Arnold is also your leading rusher on the season, and you're a team like Oklahoma that doesn't run the triple option like an Air Force or something like that, that's a problem. So I think that's going to be an issue. They got to find a run game. I don't know if they will against this Tennessee team. Nico Amaliva, the quarterback for Tennessee, he's highly dynamic. He can throw it. He can pass it. They have weapons all around him and a ton of speed there at Tennessee. So I don't know. I think right now it's a 7-point road favorite in Tennessee. I think they're going to win by that more. I almost feel like that's stealing. I feel like they're going to win by a couple scores. I don't think Oklahoma has the team to hang with Tennessee. I know their defense is pretty decent. I don't think they'll be able to handle anything quite like Tennessee. So I think we'll see the Volunteers cover that 7 points pretty easily. And they expect over under 57.5. I don't know. Also, by the way, this is Oklahoma's induction into the SEC. It's their first SEC conference game as official member of the SEC. But number 6, Tennessee, at number 15, Oklahoma. It's an ABC late kickoff at 6:30 Central, 5:30 Mountain Time. It'll be a very entertaining football game. Look forward to watching that one on ABC. And I think it'll be a really good game. I think it will be a good game for a while, but I think Tennessee pulls away late and makes it. And plus, it's a great helmet game. Oklahoma, Tennessee, 2 blue blood programs at this point in time. All right, we're moving into the top 2.
Number 2,
it's the ultimate helmet game, honestly. You should only see this. You should have only really seen this type of matchup, honestly, at the Rose Bowl in January. There should have been a parade before it. But this Saturday in Ann Arbor, Michigan, we will see the USC Trojans in a Big Ten conference matchup travel to Michigan, where they'll take on the Wolverines. USC has had a good start to the season. Miller Moss has done what he's been asked to do, complete a high percentage of balls for only 2 touchdowns. But they've got other pieces around him, which has made USC look good. And their defense, most importantly, is vastly improved. The defense is vastly improved for USC this year. And that's always been the gaping hole in Lincoln Riley, their head coach's game. Michigan, on the other hand, has an elite defense, very, very good. But offensively, it's been an issue this year, as we've seen all season long. They put up 30 points against Fresno State. They only scored 12 in a blowout loss to Texas. And then they only put up 28 points against Arkansas State. So, and they're going to make a change at quarterback. They're going away from Warren. They're going to Alex Orji, who's more of a run threat at the quarterback position. Maybe that changes this Michigan offense and gives them a spark, gives them a little bit of an extra boost in trying to put up points per game. I think this game will be very, very good. Right now, a 5.5-point favorite is USC on the road, which tells you a lot going to the Big House. Something tells me that Michigan is going to be right there in this game the entire way. It's going to be very, very close. I just don't trust Michigan's offense enough, but I don't trust USC's defense either. So I'm very torn on this game. I'm going to go with my gut here. I think Michigan's going to get the win at home. I think it's going to be a big win for them. They knock off 11th ranked USC. The physicality that Michigan is going to provide is going to be a big wake up. Now, USC has had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. That is also an advantage for them. They're going to be prepared. Something about just the physicality, though, of Michigan, I think, helps them prevail. They pull off the upset. They win in a very close game. I think this game is highly entertaining as well. It'll be on CBS, 2:30 Central, 1:30 Mountain Time. That's USC and Michigan. It's a top 18 matchup. The 11th-ranked Trojans, the 18th-ranked Wolverines, my number 2 in my college football Power 5 here in week number 4. And finally,
number 1.
It's a great Big 12 game. This is one that's been circled on my calendar for a long time when it came to the Big 12 race. Number 12, Utah, on the road at T. Boone Pickens Stadium, and number 14, Oklahoma State. This will be an afternoon kickoff at 3 Central, 2 Mountain Time. It'll be on Fox. This should be a dandy of a game. I believe Cam Rising is cleared to play, and Alan Bowman is going to play. making it one of the oldest quarterback matchups in college football history. Cam Rising is 25. Alan Bowman is 24. 49 years of combined age at the quarterback position between Cam Rising and Alan Bowman. Like I said, it's the oldest quarterback matchup you might see in college football, maybe ever, and for sure this year. As Rising and Bowman square off, they have great teams around them. Ollie Gordon's a dynamic running back with 4 touchdowns already this year, and Utah plays exceptional defense. I really think this is going to be a dandy of a football game. That's why it's going to be number 1. Right now, the spread is Utah on the road by 2. And and also a great coaching matchup, by the way. Gundy, one of the longest tenured coaches in college football, against Kyle Whittingham, another long tenured coach at Utah. This is number 1 by hands down and by far the best game this weekend. It will decide, I think, who plays in the Big 12 championship game coming up here in December. I truly believe that. Whoever wins this game is probably going to be there. And I think, I don't know, if I had to pick, I'm going to take Utah on the road. I trust Kyle Whittingham. I trust Utah's in totality as a team more than I do Oklahoma State. But I think it will be a dandy of a game, and you're going to want to check that one out. That's on Fox again, 3 Central, 2 Mountain Time. Tune in to watch that. Utah, Oklahoma State. It's kind of an elimination game, I think, for maybe not for the college football playoff. That might be a vast, but it could be. And I think it's going to be an elimination for the Big 12 title game. So it could be an elimination game for college football playoff, possibly, even though both teams could rebound and be fine. Utah really hasn't been tested a lot. Oklahoma State, of course, was winning in double overtime against Arkansas. I really think this game is going to be good, and the spread says so too. 2-point spread, it's a toss-up practically, and that's the road team with the 2-point advantage at this point in time. But Utah, Oklahoma State, no doubt, number 1 in my cultural Power 5. So once again, the games I have circled this week, well, an honorable mention game, Michigan State at Boston College. And then number 5, Rutgers at Virginia Tech. Illinois at Nebraska in a top 20 25 matchup there. At number 4, Tennessee, Oklahoma, a top 15 matchup there. And then a top 20 matchup between USC and Michigan. And then you have Utah and Oklahoma State, a top 15 matchup in the Big 12. So like I said, below these games, the games are not great. They're not awesome, but it's very top heavy and some very, very good games here this upcoming weekend. Starting on Friday with Nebraska, Illinois, and then going on into Saturday, highlighted by Utah and Oklahoma State. There you go. The College Football Power 5 here on a Wednesday. Okay, let's take a break. When we return, we will be joined by Dan Lucero, our good friend, former co-host. We'll have a little sports smorgasbord, talking about all kinds of fun things in the world of sports, baseball, college football, and everything else above. That's next here on the Morning Blitz.
Since 1901, F&B Bank has been serving our local ranchers, farmers, and other ag-related businesses, and many of our team members grew up in the ag environment. That being said, we understand your business doesn't fall into a one-size-fits-all model, so why should your loans? You can count on us to understand the uniqueness of your operation and meet each one of your financing needs. Come see me, Casey Schilling, to begin building that relationship today. F&B Bank, member FDIC.
It's time for a check of the markets with the Anderson Trade Group on the Kansas Farm and Ranch Radio Network.
Good morning. This is Tom Saluda with the Anderson Trade Group with your overnight market report of September the 18th. D's corn was unchanged at $4.13 in the quarter. March unchanged at $4.31, and May unchanged at $4.41 3/4. November soybeans up 10 and a quarter at 10.16 and a quarter. Jan soybeans up 9.5 at 10.34. March soybeans up 9.
Dan, good morning. Can you hear me?
I got you. You got me?
I got you. Crystal clear. All right.
Wonderful.
We'll come to you here in about probably 2.5 minutes or so.
Sounds good.
The Dow Jones is currently up 45 points at 42,000. S&P is up 7 points at 5,707. NASDAQ is up 45 points at 19,721. Gold is up 10 points at 26.02. Silver slightly up at 30. And oil is slightly down at 70.77 a barrel. If you're out in the Colorado area and have any grain to market or risk management questions, please call John Handke or John Stiles at 970-744-4484, or you can call the Overland Park office myself, Tom Saludo, Jared Law, or Tyler Ghosh at 913-748-3000. Thank you.
When challenging conditions arise, we don't back down. We up our game. Outpacing the competition with innovations fueled by Bayer's R&D, keeping you equipped with an expanded portfolio, elite genetics, and additional local test plots. Channel leads the field, so you can rise above. See how you can save at channel.com/finance24. Read and follow pesticide label directions, grain marketing, and other
Out
stewardship
here,
practices.
we raise stronger people, stronger crops, and we proudly raise our flag to that. Let the weather, pests, and pressures try to beat us down. We only keep growing up. With the next-gen genetics, the pure acre-for-acre know-how of these soils, and a deep pride of our roots, we're born to raise at Hogemeyer. Learn more at therightseed.com.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, and cleaner American fuel. This message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
As a customer-owned cooperative, Midwest Energy members elect their board of directors. Ballots for this year's director election are in the mail and must be completed and returned by October 4th. Election results will be announced at our annual meeting on Monday, October 21st, 10 a.m. at the Hilton Garden Inn in Hayes. We'll give away great door prizes, and all Midwest members are invited to attend. Midwest Energy, a customer-owned cooperative, making energy work for you.
Hey, it's Brian Haney, the voice of the Jayhawks, and you're listening to my main man, Ross Volkmer. He may be a Husker, but he also knows how to rock chalk. And you're listening to the Morning Blitz right here on 102.5 You Rock.
Once again, welcome back inside the Morning Blitz on this Wednesday. Currently 60 degrees, overcast skies here in Goodland. Expect to be mostly sunny, though, today with a high of 87. We will get to some big news in the college football landscape coming up in our third segment, but we're pleased to welcome onto the show our good friend, former co-host of this program. He joins us on the Hurl Chevrolet GMC video stream, looking quite great in his red today. Dan Lucero, good morning, Dan. How we doing?
Good morning to you, Ross, and everybody watching, listening out there in Northwest Kansas. I'm doing well, thank you. Hope you are doing well.
Oh, doing well. Can't complain. How's fatherhood? We're a couple months in now.
3 months to be precise, and yeah, things are good. Asher's growing like a weed. That's our son's name. He's huge, man. He's already almost 17 pounds. We're getting rid of like 3 to 6 month stuff already. Got him in 6 to 9 month old stuff. The basement looks like a Carter's threw up. It's a lot.
Oh, that's hilarious on the Carter's comment, because I've been there. Trust me. I know exactly what you mean by that. Oh, man. He reminds me of my youngest, Bishop, he's 9 months old and he's 22 pounds. So,
holy moly.
He's a big old boy. He likes his food. He's a happy guy when he eats. So.
Well, he and Asher can team up, play two down defensive tackle at K-State.
We got a nose guard and a D tackle. The 1-2-8 the technique. That'll be great.
No fast twitch ability. That's not a Lucero trait. So he's not going to play the edge. But first down and 10, yeah, he'll eat up a double team. He'll let the linebacker get the glory.
He's just a hole plugger. That's all he is.
Exactly.
Just plug the hole. Dan Lucero joins us from WWW Sports, of course. I'm going to call it a sports smorgasbord this morning. We're going to talk all kinds of different things, starting first and foremost, Dan, with baseball. I tell you, there's a great story that maybe some people aren't following some closely, but I tell you what, there's just been great young players we've talked about before in our conversations. But what we're seeing from Bobby Witt Jr. with his 30 for 30, 30 and 30, I should say, 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases last night, and then with Shohei Ohtani chasing 50-50. How do you describe what we're seeing right now in baseball?
Well, we're seeing some fascinating pennant races. Nobody seems to want to clinch a playoff spot.
And the wild cards are nuts. Yes, absolutely.
is really tightening up in the American League. The Tigers have insinuated themselves back in the conversation. A couple of close wins over the Royals at Kauffman Stadium the last 2 nights. So yeah, it's been thrilling to kind of see who's going to end up qualifying for the postseason here. We don't entirely know yet with 10 games left to play, but with Ohtani, you're talking about a generational baseball talent, the kind of person that our grandkids and great grandkids are going to hear the stories about him like we heard the stories about Babe Ruth. Like that's really what we're dealing with here. We are, the term generational kind of gets thrown around a little bit sometimes, maybe a little bit loosely, but that's really what we're seeing with Shohei Ohtani. This is a once in a lifetime kind of baseball talent for somebody who is doing maybe the thing he's not as good at as the other thing that he does, but can't do right now because he's recovering from Tommy John surgery. Like, he might really be a better pitcher than he is a hitter. And all he's going to do is make a new category all for himself, 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases, like at his other job. The thing he moonlights doing, hitting 50 home runs and stealing 50 bases. Truly incredible. Like we have never seen one like him because we weren't alive for Babe Ruth. We've never seen one like him. We won't see another like him in our lifetimes. As for Bobby Witt Jr., I mean, you talk about somebody who's making a category for himself. He's the only shortstop in baseball history to have multiple 30-30 seasons, and he's done it in 2 of his first 3 big league seasons now, back to back. And there's no limit on how many times he can do this because he hits the ball hard and far and he runs really fast. Those tools tend to age fairly well. He could just keep doing this over and over, be 30-30 every year for the next decade, and do it in a Royals uniform for competitive teams. That's what's really exciting, is that the Royals have committed to putting good teams around him, and they're reaping the benefits of that on the cusp of returning to the postseason this year for the first time in 9 years.
What do you think that statistical group, Tony be the first, 50-50 guy more than likely. If he pitches well, what would it be? Like a 50-50, 250 with the strikeout? What would it be?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if he went 50-50 and struck out 200 guys, they'd have to kick him out of the league and invent a new one for him, just for him. Like, I think that he really and truly is just a league apart. There's no doubt he's special.
Well, isn't it funny that I was listening to someone talk about it, and they were saying like in a year or 2 he's already eligible for the Hall of Fame, and he might as well just go in now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he can start working on a rough draft of his Cooperstown speech at this point, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely nuts. You're talking about the wild card, and you're exactly right. It's a phenomenal race to the finish with just a couple weeks left here in the AL and in the AL and NL wild card races. What team in both the AL and the NL you think is going to get left out looking in?
Well, right now in the American League, I'm a little worried about the Minnesota Twins. They really seem to be leaking oil. They did win last night against Cleveland, but they have really struggled over the last couple of months, and Detroit is hot on their heels. I'd be looking over my shoulder if I were the Minnesota Twins right now, especially because the Tigers have the nice little benefit of they get 3 of their last 10 games are against the White Sox. So, you put those in the win column, and you only have to do but so much in those other 7 to maybe have a chance to surpass Minnesota and even Kansas City. They're only 2 games behind Kansas City. If they beat them tonight, which they very well might, they've got probable Cy Young winner Tarek Skubal on the mound in Kansas City tonight. So Detroit is hot on the heels, and I worry a little bit about Minnesota. In the National League, man, Atlanta's just been ravaged by injuries this season. Their best pitcher and their best position player were out for the season back in April. And that's been a hard thing for them to recover from. They've hung on the periphery, but no, I think that even though Arizona has struggled of late, they've lost the first 2 of a series in Denver. I think they're probably going to hang on. I think the Mets are going to hang on. I think the Padres are going to sneak in there. And that leaves out the Braves team. They were my preseason pick to win the World Series. Of course, you can't foresee Spencer Strider's arm blowing up and Ronald Acuna tearing his ACL for the second time in 4 years. And that's too bad because that's a great team otherwise. But you take away any team's best player and best pitcher, and not just a best player and best pitcher, but MVP and Cy Young caliber guys, it's going to be hard to recover from even over 162 games.
Dan Lucero joins us on the Hurl Chevrolet GMC video stream talking wild card baseball. Why can no one seem to kind of solidify a spot in the wild card, you think? Like really lock in a spot? Because like you said, the Padres have been at the top of the NL. The Diamondbacks have been at the top of the NL wild card. The Orioles have kind of hung up there for a while in the American League, but, the Royals are still just a game and a half ahead of the Twins. Why can no one lock in a spot, you think?
Well, like by definition, the wild card team isn't good enough to win their division, right? Like that's the whole point of a wild card team is they weren't good enough over the course of 162 games to go win their division, which suggests like a weakness, right? Like they aren't good enough to outlast their weaknesses and go win a division. So what we're seeing is teams with some weaknesses being exploited a little bit, and teams with injury issues not having the depth to fill that void. The Orioles right now haven't beaten a team over 500 in a series since early July. They got the fourth worst record in the American League since August. They've also got 5 starting pitchers on the injured list. Like, it's kind of a problem. Nobody's got the depth to overcome that. The Royals missed Vinny Pasquantino, lost for the season with a broken thumb a couple of weeks ago. They've tried to fill that void, but he was leading the team in RBI when he went down, and their lineup isn't as deep as it was when he was hitting third between Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez. So I think that's what you generally see. The wild card races tend to get a little snug like this at the end because in pressure games, and that's what these are, these final 10, 15 games, your weaknesses get magnified a little bit at times. And I think that's what we're seeing in both the American and the National League with regards to the wild card races.
Certainly going to be a fascinating finish to see who ends up making the postseason. And you just got to make it, because then everything kind of just resets. And as we saw last year, the Diamondbacks, you can get on a heater and kind of make your way there if you have the roster to do it. So you just got to make the cut. And that's going to be very interesting here over the last couple of weeks. Dan Lucero joining us here for a sports smorgasbord. I want to change and go over to football. Jalen Daniels is really struggling for KU right now. The pick sixes, the turnovers, really big issue. How surprised are you guys there at WW who cover it very closely that he's having the issues that he's been having?
Well, very surprised. I mean, this was a guy who was the preseason offensive player of the year in the Big 12 going into last season, and then only got to play 3 games. Going into this year, there were some changes, obviously. Andy Kotelnicki, the former offensive coordinator, leaves for Penn State. Jeff Grimes joins the program. He's splitting those responsibilities with Jim Zabrowski, who's been the quarterback's coach while Jalen Daniels has been there. But nobody expected 6 interceptions in 3 weeks from a guy who came into the season with maybe some Heisman Trophy hopes. He doesn't look like the same player that he was in that magical September of 2022 when he really announced his presence. I think there are a lot of reasons for it. I don't think it would be fair to just say, oh, it's one thing, because there are a lot of things. It is a little bit of a different offense. He doesn't look maybe as physically comfortable throwing the football. I think it looks like he's put on some upper body weight that maybe has changed his throwing mechanic. He looks different throwing the ball. Not that I think his back injury is still bothering him necessarily. In fact, I think physically he looks all right. I mean, he's running the ball, right? He's running the ball, keeping it on option plays. Not something that if you were worried about your back, you'd be doing, right? So I'm not worried about the physical as much a part of it as much as I am. There's been a change in offensive philosophy. I don't think the play calling has been very good, has been putting Jalen Daniels in very good spots. And frankly, he has missed a lot of football and missed a lot of development time that goes with that. And maybe we're starting to see some of the effects of a guy who missed, let me do the quick math in my head, 15 games over the last 2 years. Like that's hard to overcome that when you're on the sideline, when you're not practicing, when you're not taking hits, when you're not seeing live fire. There's no substitute for that kind of experience. And maybe he's really starting to show that he's missed that the last 2 seasons. I still think he's got a high ceiling. I think KU can get back on track. It won't be easy. I mean, their first conference game is at West Virginia, who's just as desperate for a win as Kansas is. That's a really dangerous spot for the Jayhawks on Saturday. And if they don't win that game, they're 1-3. And then you start to worry about that locker room. You start to worry about whether the season maybe spirals a little bit. But I think the culture with Lance Leipold as head coach is strong enough to withstand this slow start. And I think those guys, those veteran guys, can get that team back on track. And that includes Jalen Daniels.
I don't know. I think they need to find a way to get Devin Neal the ball even more and ride him during this time of struggle for Daniels until he gets kind of the rust shaken off, to say.
You can't give him the ball enough. He's one of the best running backs in the country.
Absolutely. Dan Lucero joining us from WIBW Sports on the Hurdle Chevrolet GMC video stream. K-State, it felt like with that win against Arizona, they really took care of some things there. I feel like they kind of took the shackles off of Avery Johnson a little bit, let him be a little bit more freer of an offensive playmaker. And I just want to get your thoughts on Avery kind of being a little bit more free to do what he is comfortable doing. And at the same time, how much do you feel like maybe that game against Tulane really helped prepare K-State, specifically defensively, for that Arizona game, which was such a big win for them, getting a top 25 win?
Well, K-State didn't play well at Tulane, flat out. It was not their best game. But, like, we've seen K-State teams under Chris Kleiman have a clunker in September in the non-conference. And usually what happens is they lose that game, right? Like, they lost to Tulane 2 years ago. They lost to Mizzou, which, and I mean, none of those were bad losses, right? Those are good teams, ended up beating them. But they didn't play well in those games. And you felt like if they had played well, they would have won those games. Well, they didn't play well at Tulane 2 weeks ago, but they won the game anyway. And sometimes it's easier to learn the right lessons from a game where, yeah, you don't play well, but at least you win. And I think that defensively in particular, they did a complete 180 as a team, and they got some things cleaned up. I don't think it was a personnel issue. I think it was a communication, game planning issue that they were able to iron out. And I think those things are more fixable than if you just like don't have talent, you don't have good players. I think this K-State defense has good players, and they're going to be just fine in the long run as they get those things cleaned up. As far as Avery Johnson goes, it was really interesting to hear Chris Kleiman, Matt Wells, that coaching staff talk about letting Avery be Avery, because they didn't really do that the first two games, but it's understandable. Like, you don't want Avery Johnson taking a hit that's going to put him out for a while against UT Martin. Like, okay, fine, don't run him against UT Martin. That's fine. You maybe need to run him when you're in a tight game on the road against Tulane. Maybe they should have ran him a little more than that. They did take the shackles off of him on Friday night against Arizona. That's the Avery Johnson I think we're going to see a lot more of moving forward. His inaccuracy passing has been a bit of a surprise to me. He never had those issues in high school. Obviously, new game, new speed, all those kinds of things. But I think once he gets that dialed in and starts playing first halves the way he's thrown the ball in the second half of games, that's when we're going to see this offense really take off, because they've got so many playmakers, and Avery can beat you out of the pocket. He can beat you with his legs. I think the best is still yet to come for that K-State offense.
Dan Lucero, our guest here. A couple more quick ones for you on the NFL on our sports smorgasbord. No Isaiah Pacheco for the next 6 to 8 weeks or so. They're going to bring in, of course, why am I losing my mind here? Kareem Hunt, thank you. Bringing him into the practice squad. I don't know if he's going to make an impact or not. How much of a loss is it to not have Isaiah Pacheco for this Chiefs team?
It's a big loss, because he's a legit starting running back in the league, and the way he runs sets a physical tone for this Chiefs offense. That being said, we've seen over time that running back is a bit more of a replaceable position if you have a good scheme, if you have some studs on the offensive line, which the Chiefs do, one of the best lines in the league. And I think they can make it work for the next 6+ weeks without Pacheco. Now, I don't know what that looks like. That means 20 carries for Carson Steele. Like, I have my doubts about that. Kareem Hunt looked totally washed last year with the Browns. I'm stunned Clark Hunt let him in the building. I mean, there's a reason he's the guy they made an example out of with all the other problem children they've had on their roster the last decade or so. There's a reason they made an example out of Kareem Hunt. So I'm very surprised they let him back in the building. I don't know that he's got much to offer anymore. Still a great pass blocker, though. And between him and Samaje Perine, who's one of the best pass blocking running backs in the league, I just think you might see the Chiefs say, hey, we're going to prioritize protecting Patrick Mahomes with the running back spot, and whatever production we get on the ground to keep defenses honest is gravy.
And finally, for your hometown Denver Broncos, how much of a concern is it for Bo Nix after the first two games? I know he's a rookie. I know it's the first two games, but boy, no touchdowns, throwing the football, and 4 picks. It's not good.
Well, the concern is he's 24 years old, so this is what he is. Like, you drafted Bo Nix knowing this is what you're going to get. There's not a ceiling here. The skill set is the skill set, and frankly, it's a backup skill set. It's accuracy, but not super accurate. It's ability to get the ball out quick, but only to your short receivers. It's not a deep passing game that's going to be really in existence. He's not a great deep thrower of the ball. He can run a little bit, but not that fast. He He's good in the 2-minute drill. He's good with the up-tempo stuff because that's what he was comfortable with in college, but you can't run that for 60 minutes in the NFL. Honest to goodness, what we've seen the first 2 weeks, the inaccurate passing except to the flats and the short routes, the proficiency in the 2-minute drill, ability to move the ball when they need to in a hurry. It's a little Tebow-ish, and I don't mean that in a nice way. It's not going to work. And look, he was the 6th best quarterback in this draft class, and he went number 12 overall. It was a team that has been desperate for a quarterback, desperate for a solution at that spot, reaching for one. And I don't care what Sean Payton said about, I felt just like I felt about Patrick Mahomes watching this kid. That would bother me a lot if I were a Bronco fan, because there's no Mahomes in this kid. This is a career backup skill set being tasked now to try and save a franchise that hasn't been to the playoffs in 9 years. And in 2 years, we're going to be doing this all over again with a new quarterback and probably a new head coach.
Hard times being a Broncos fan, that's for sure. Dan Lucero from WWW Sports, our former co-host. Could have him on for a whole 2 hours, but he's got, he's got dad duties to get to and all that stuff. Dan, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate it, and we'll catch up soon, all right?
Ross, thank you so much for having me. Hope it's a lovely day for you and all the listeners in Northwest Kansas.
Thank you once again. Dan Lucero, one of the I want to say probably the most brilliant, one of the most brilliant sports minds that I know in joining us here on the Morning Blitz. All right, let's get to a break. We'll come back. We'll wrap it up with some thoughts on some big news out of the University of Tennessee. You're listening to the Morning Blitz.
Even though your attention has turned back to school with events and activities, you just can't forget everything going on at home. That's where your local Hoover Lumber Ace hardware stores in Goodland and Colby come in. Keep the lawn in check with mowers, blowers, and trimmers from Craftsman, Toro, and Ego. They are still your local Benjamin Moore paint retailer, and they still have that amazing selection of outdoor grills and griddles from Traeger, Weber, and Blackstone. Plus, their helpful and knowledgeable staffs are some of the best in the Northwest. It's all at Hoover Lumber Ace Hardware in Goodland and Colby. Open every day but Sunday.
Your livelihood is important to you. You work hard to succeed in your farming operation, crop, livestock, home, vehicles, and special needs. We have you covered. Discounts are available for new business, remodeling, hail-resistive roofing, multi-policy, and many more. Optional coverage endorsements as well for machinery, ingestion, and equipment breakdown. Umbrella coverage for additional coverage on your home, farm, and auto. See the girls at the insurance agency at 1020 Main in Goodland or call 785-899-5011.
They're having one hail of a sale at Hurl Chevrolet GMC in Goodland, Kansas. That's right, a hail sale where you can get massive savings on a new vehicle. For example, get a 23 GMC Sierra 1500 up to $20,000 off when you trade in eligible vehicle, now just over $37,000. A new 24 Chevy Tahoe RST, $13,000 off, now just over $59K. Plus 24 Chevy Traverse RS, $10,000 off, now just over $45,000. Plus many more. It's one hail of a sale at Hurl Chevrolet GMC in Goodland, Kansas. Online at hurlchev.com.
The Farmers State Bank of Oakley has been financing agriculture since the day we opened our doors. Hello, this is Corbin, and we are proud to be your locally owned partner in ag. We invite you to come and visit with us when you need to purchase new or used farm equipment, or need any type of agriculture or business loan. We have the knowledge, experience, and financial resources to keep you growing. The Farmers State Bank of Oakley, a tradition of community and agriculture for over 115 years. Member FDIC.
Hey, it's Brian Haney, the voice of the Jayhawks.
A two-hand follow jam is true for Josh Jackson.
And you're listening to the Morning Blitz with my main man, Ross Volkmer, right here on 102.5 You Rock.
Get to Tennessee news here in just a matter of moments, some big news, but I want to get some rainfall reports in from yesterday. It was good to see a little precipitation move through the area. Depending on where you're at, some places got a little bit more, some people got a little bit less, but a lot of people around that 25, quarter inch to 30 points last night. Oakley had 26, Colby had 30. I know I had around 30 in my rain gauge here in Goodland. Quarter inch in Winona. Grinnell almost had a half inch. And then, what did I see? Over by Hill City, almost 70 points at this point in time. And then Rob, of course, on the F&B Bank text line, he joined us, of course, from Weskin. He had around 20 points in his rain gauge. So a little light shower, enough to settle the dirt, which is good because there was plenty of dirt blowing around yesterday. And boy, I sure hope the wind doesn't continue to blow as bad as it has. Ugh, I'm done with that wind. That's bad. Final segment here on the Morning Blitz. Thanks again to Dan Lucero from WWW Sports. It was a great conversation. Missed any of it? Our sports smorgasbord. You'll want to go back and listen to the podcast page for sure. He had great stuff on MLB playoffs, talking about KU, K-State, and of course the Chiefs and the Broncos as well. All right, let's move into the news yesterday coming down out of Knoxville, Tennessee, where Tennessee is doing a first arrangement of its kind ever, as they're going to be putting on a 10% talent fee on tickets to help pay athletes as part of a new revenue sharing plan to begin 2025. So once again, when the news came down earlier this summer about how, they're going to have to pay athletes, $20 million, $20 to $22 million in revenue a year, that's going to come out of your budget to pay these athletes because of NIL rules. How's that going to impact your bottom line? It's going to impact a lot. And how is Tennessee going to try and combat that? Is with a 10% increase in all ticket invoices. That's season tickets and single game tickets, as well as donations for those seats. Tennessee will add an average increase of 4.5% on all football tickets. Now, not going to seem like maybe a lot when it's all said and done. That's a stadium that holds close to 100,000. I think maybe at 100,000. Right at it. And so, you add that, it's going to add up over time. But, you're starting to kind of get into the point where you're going to start pricing out people to come to games, especially your families and your younger kids and the next generation of fans. That's where this is where it gets a little scary. You need butts in seats to have good home atmospheres, and you need butts in seats, to help not only have good home atmospheres, but also, of course, to help pay the payroll. And if you're going to get to the point where you're enticing people to not pay for tickets because they're getting too expensive, and it's more comfortable to sit at home with their own beer fridge and their own television and their comfy chair and not be squished in, and with their surround sound, all that stuff. Look, you're playing with fire here. You just are. And I get why Tennessee did. I'm not blaming them for thinking outside the box, and this I don't think is a super dumb idea. I just think we're getting to a reality you're going to start to get to a breaking point. If you aren't winning. And Tennessee is getting back to winning. They haven't done a lot of it here, in the past couple of decades, but they're getting back to winning now underneath Josh Heupel. But if you're not going to have winning, and you're not going to entice young fans to come and get hooked into your program and into your stadium and into your atmosphere, it's going to be very, very hard for the next generations of fans to want to pay that money, meaning you're not going to have any money at all to pay your athletes. So I get what Tennessee's doing. I understand it. You're walking a very tight rope and a fine line when it comes to this kind of stuff, and I think it could, not saying it will, but I think it could possibly end up hurting programs that continue to raise the ticket price, help raise to get money to pay athletes. I think it could end up hurting in the long run by having less fans, meaning less tickets bought, meaning not money to pay athletes, meaning you probably won't have the success that you're looking for.
A three-run walk-off home run, a game-winning walk-off with a walk-off.
His second walk-off hit of the season.
In walk-off fashion, that baby's go.
And we talked with Dan Lucero about the Royals and the Rockies. Last night, the Royals losing 3-1 to the Tigers in extra innings, as it was a broken bat single in the 10th that gave the Tigers the win. For the second straight night, Rockies pitching was phenomenal. They shut down the Diamondbacks offense, which has gone silent here over the last couple of weeks. They've got to wake up, or they're not going to make the postseason, although Dan thinks they will, and I believe in Dan. But an 8-2 win for 8-2 win at Coors Field for the Rockies, who try to go for a sweep today. The Royals try to avoid a sweep today on 790 KXXX. That's at 6:40 Central Time. And, of course, we mentioned with Dan Lucero, Kareem Hunt, after a half dozen years away, back in the Kansas City Chiefs locker room. He's being signed to the practice squad. We'll see if he has any impact whatsoever going forward with the Chiefs. We'll see. I still think Carson Steele is going to be their guy. They're going to use him as just a battering ram, kind of like they did with Isaiah Pacheco. They're just going to use him, and if he can hold on to the football, which he only has one fumble, if he can hold on to the football, I think that's going to be a serviceable guy, and then they've got a couple guys to do pass catching and stuff out of the backfield and pass block and Hunt, as well as Samaje Perine. All right, that will do it for our program today. Again, a big thank you to our good friend Dan Lucero from WWW Sports for joining us on the Hurl Chevrolet GMC video stream. Thank you to those out there who tune in today, whether it's through the video stream or, of course, on the radio or NWKSradio.net. We'll be back again on tomorrow. 23 hours, obviously. We'll have the NFL Power 5, and we'll have a brand new guest in studio, a first-time guest in studio. We'll talk about that tomorrow on the program. Hope to see you then. This has been the Morning Blitz.